Happy Holy Day, Moors, and welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, and awakening experience for all ages. Tonight we are pleased once again to present our National Grand Chief, Tarik Day.
Thank you. You got a piece of paper. I want you to make the 9-dot square. And this also is it's called the non-dot matrix. Now, the issue with this non-dot matrix is for you to tie all 9 dots together with 4 straight lines without removing your pen from the paper. And there's a lesson in this. So make 9 dots in a square, 9 square, and 4 lines. Tie all 9 dots together without removing your pen from the paper. Now you figure out how to do it. You can make a series if you want to and just have fun for a minute. But keep in mind why you're here and some of the things or the angles that we share with you to think outside of the box, to not be contained in dogmatic theory without the will to examine things. And keep in mind that one of the major reasons why humanity is in a sluggish and what we'll call a suppressed position is because they're unwilling to think out of the box. This is a test that is given to people in what you would call erudite degrees, or what you call thinkers, philosophers, etc., to challenge their will to think. And so this is being shared with you. It's called the 9-dot matrix. So you connect all 9 dots with 4 straight lines and don't remove your pen from the paper. Right? And that is to lead into subject matter for tonight. And while some of these things by necessity, social and political necessity, are redundant, it is necessary not just for us here, but for many people who are listening here on this land, and some of the people who are listening from around the world, which we are aware that they do, to challenge your thinking, challenge yourself, and to liberate the mind, because from your thinking and from the action of thought, which is thinking, you will bring your solutions. So keep that in mind. One of the things that the Bishop really don't want the people to do is think for themselves. And because of transitions that are taking place today on the planet, you're having accelerated resistance to your liberation. So understand that. It will be reflected in the economic system. It will be definitely reflected in the politics. And it will be reflected in all social organizations, period, across the board. There will be no institution and no organizations that will not be affected by the transitions that are taking place now. Much of what's taking place in the political, economic, and social realm are secondary and third-level reflections of what's taking place in what we call the abstract or spiritual realm. And that's the truth. which is again why we're going over this. And most of these things we've told you from time to time in different manners at different times. However, it's not unlike what you would call chess. When Rome makes a move, you must be cognizant to make a move. And comprehending that most of the people aren't aware of how things actually operate, politically, we have a tendency to reflect on symptoms and very often not address root issue. We're dealing with root. And so we're implying to you or imploring you to be cognizant enough to start dealing with root of issue. But the issue is to know what the root is that you're dealing with in the first place. Now, when I was on my way down here, a young brother was on the train, and he was actually in the train to the front of the train, and he worked his way back. Then he asked me who I was, he recognized me, and then he started a conversation, and we had a talk. So we got off the train, so I was down here for an hour in the train station, and then a few other people joined in, and so we had class at the Wilmington station before I got here. And some of the same things came up. He studied very well, and many people study, yet without certain information, a lot of their concepts are still wrong, so we need to fix them. One of the things that came up was his misconception of what the United States was, even though technically he's heard the data before that the United States is not a country, it's a corporation. People often repeat data issues and information, but it doesn't reflect in their operational conversations. And so, one of the things that I want to bring to your attention is this. It is vitally important that you understand and comprehend why, and this is redundant, why secret societies exist. Are we clear? Motive-wise. Why they are heavily prevalent, particularly in Western hemispheres. Meaning that, because West is not necessarily what's called direction, it implies in the Occidental world. So the Occidental world is essentially the Germanic tribe hybrids that you know as Europeans. Are we clear? And keys to their operational, or what you call modus operandi, of operating in what you would call occupied territories under unum sanctum operations. So what you would call today, you would call colonialism. All right, but colonialism from European nations into the Asiatic nations is unum sanctum. And one of the things that I felt that need to be reiterated, because a lot of our people hear it and really still don't get it. And this is particular because of the issue of diversity that has been avoided for so long to the injury of our people is now, on the front burner in relationship to the current politics that's happening in North America. With the wall thing between Mexico and Mexico. Now, the wall, I just want to iterate, the politics of that wall is the erection of that wall is with Europeans. They'll say the Mexican-American War, which is a lie. It is the European-American War. And when they say the Spanish-American War, that's also a lie. And the French-American War is also a lie. All of them are European versus American war. When you look at any of these dynamics from their control perspective, you're already rooted in a false matrix. And your concepts from that point on will be muddy, and at that point they control the narrative. At that point they can control your thought processes. At that point you become co-creators of the paradigm that actually suppresses you. And it's actually a mind control system. And it's actually understanding how things actually work, distinguished from how people assume things work. And I wish we had, one of the things that I wanted to do is, and it's for lack of time, I wanted to build a chart and then project it on the screen, which I'll do later at another time, because I wanted to show you correlatives. The advantage that the European colonists and their helpers have over our people is that they know the fundamental rules of the law of one, what's called the law of one. And this is back to the fundamental principles of Hermetic law, or understanding the phenomena that operate in this universe, in the known universe, are clear. These are indisputable principles, are clear. Now, you'll get into Kabbalah, as you know, Kabbalion, and you get into the 7 principles. However, collectively, to keep it simple, you're dealing with the law of one, and what is called your creative self, your capacity to create, your co-capacity of creation, and thought process, what thought is, and what they often refer to in your fundamental Gnostic philosophies as the 3 R's. And the three R's are relative, relationships, and thus reality. This is also really having a consciousness of the self or the being, or what they would call your mind, your subconscious mind, supraconscious mind, things along that order. What the priests do not want the masses to really comprehend is their self-responsibility to thought and to thinking processes. Are we clear? Now, thinking is actionable thought. However, everything that is, or that is manifested, or that you see, is what is called the manifest of the manipulation of energy wave. So everything is energy. What they don't want you to do is to come to the realization of recognizing that. At the point that you begin to recognize and comprehend natural law, at that point you start becoming liberated from all dogma systems that have been presented to you in the name of religion. Understand what I just said? I didn't say as religion, in the name of religion. And when you often hear me say that the masses don't get religion, I say that because it's absolutely true. However, people's concepts of what they think religion is why they're subject to mind control. Meaning that they're assuming things to mean what they do not mean. Or they're assuming the connotative linguistics that the priesthood has presented to them of what things are, and then get caught in the illusionary matrix, which is what happens. Are we clear? I'm keeping it simple because it is simple. But at the same time, if one is not thinking, it can seem complex, but it really isn't. And it's necessary that certain fundamental principles of thinking is explained to people so that they don't get trapped in what is called the illusionary world. And because that's how things operate here. And also, but yet that is created. This is what must be understood. You know, that you help create the illusion. Now, many people who begin to get a feel and see through some of this stuff get caught or tricked also by the priesthood to pull them back into the false matrix by encouraging them to neglect or to reject the physical realm and to try to attach themselves to the non-physical realm, i.e. abandon the physical, and then allude to the non-physical when that's a false position. The real position is to get a clear understanding of what both of them are. And you actually stand in between. Now that's the virtue. You know, that way, see, the deal is to understand the origin of illusion. It's not that you reject illusion, it's that you understand what it is. And disattach. And you observe it. You know, but understand, because all this energy, the projection of thought, causes what we call vibrational wave. And vibrational wave is what creates what we call the physical. And yet it's still an illusion. And this is why when people who begin to really comprehend this or to understand it will call it holographic in a sense, it's only because you're projecting. Now, the knowledge of how things actually operate is one of the tools that the European uses for ruling the planet. And this is again why I'm going into the subject matter. Also sharing with you one of the Gnostic lessons of the 9-dot matrix, which I told you right on the paper, because I want to show you in a minute, and how to connect the 9 dots with 4 straight lines without removing your hand from the paper. However, as Dr. Naila presented, when you come here to the House of Reawakening Minds, you know, we encourage, you know, free thought, because we know that humans can't be liberated if they're not able or willing. It's not that they're not able, if they're not willing to think outside the box, because they're contained. Meaning the power of the priesthood is to get you willing to dogmatically confine yourself to an image that fits what they dictate to you under dogma is the format of the religious order that you allegedly belong to. Now, and they'll cover it with the word God, which is never really qualified. Are we clear? Knowing that the masses who don't know the fundamental operation think that God means the creator of the universe when actually the creator is actually you. So once they begin to get you to look outside yourself for the creative forces, at that point they control you. And this is why it's very sensitive with the priesthood when anyone starts revealing the secrets of their operations and they get mad and want to murder everybody. Because at that point they lose their power over you. You know, but it's actually very simple. And so the 9-dot matrix is a format for you to begin to think. So would you like to share as an example? Anyone that has done you connected the 9 dots? With 4 straight lines without removing your hand from the paper. 9-dot squares or the 9-dot matrix. Connect all 9 dots with 4 straight lines. And those of you who've done it, you come up here and demonstrate it.
No overlapping. Right.
Say again?
No overlapping. No going back over.
In other words, 4 straight lines without removing the pen from the paper. Any kind of way you want to do it, connect the 9 dots. 4 straight lines. Now, and what does it command? It commands you to think, doesn't it? But the presentment of the 9-dot matrix is also an implied containment, isn't it? Isn't it? But remember, the mind and thinking and thought is not to be encompassed by containment. And the key to the power of controlling what you call the narrative is to psychologically project to you a psychology of being contained. And then your willingness to cooperate with that. At the point that they get you to agree, at the point they start taking control of your life. This is why dogma is such a powerful tool for the priesthood, though it's a total fraud, and presented as religion. Are we clear? Presented as religion. And I'm telling you this because, in fact, that is the projection paradox of the U.S. And I'll present this to you and say this. Do you notice that when the Europeans are talking politics, in the same sentence, they'll say the United States, and then in the next sentence they'll say the U.S., and then in the next sentence they'll say America, and then present all of them as if it means a country, and no one challenges them? When they recognize there's no challenge or correction, at that point they know they're controlling the narrative, because they just took you into a matrix with language. And while it's very simple, and very often we talk to people about correcting the language, it is not just correcting, it is really, do you really comprehend what we're making reference to when we say correction? It is where they can present 2 to 3 different issues, items, or things, and mix them and present to you them as one, and recognize that you don't have the senses or the respect of the common sense to recognize and stop the projection. Are we clear? Right along those same lines, when Europeans will refer to themselves as white people and refer to the Aboriginal people as black people, and there's no rejection, no rebuttal, at that point again, they just projected, and they already know at that point they control the narrative. Now, to the mind, persons who don't know fundamental metaphysical operations of the universe fall for that, don't know that they just came under a spell of whoever's controlling what they call the narrative, and never suspected. One of the reasons why some of these things we go over again, sometimes redundantly here at the House of Reawakening Minds, is to get you to understand that consciousness, or what we refer to consciousness, is simply isness. Consciousness is not consciousness itself because of consciousness. That's just a reference point or directional. What is the issue of things being one, and understanding that you are an expression of energy, of actually of a greater whole. And your psychology of it being expressed from what we refer to as the individual being gives a sense of separateness, but that actually in the reality doesn't exist. So that's the illusion. And so there's a desire to express the individuality self. This is where the ego comes in. Or the person, or the personality means mask. So you gotta understand that. So we go into masking. So what occurs is that you need to comprehend that that's how things operate. It's not a point of implying to you to reject it. It's a point of implying to you to observe it and to understand what you're dealing with, so that you can start taking control of your life and not necessarily be controlled by others who understand how things work. Are we clear? Now, again, if there's no comprehension of the root of what I said, I might sound like I'm talking rhetorical when I'm really not. And so I want to make sure that you understand that thinking is actionable thought. Right? And consciousness are levels of thinking. But consciousness itself is not consciousness. Is what we call consciousness. All clear. Now, these are fundamental simplicities of the reality of life that the priesthood denies the masses of in what you would call true Gnostic wisdom or religion, that they do not give the masses for selfish purposes with the intent of controlling them and using them for their own purposes. Are we clear? And the reason I'm saying that to you is because it is well that you have an awareness of it so that you can understand the politics and see that these priests battling with each other for rulership over you and your estate, and then getting you to take sides when you should observe them. Do you understand? You know how they say you want the red pill or the blue pill? I don't want either one. I'm just watching this with you. You know, really watching what you do. Knowing that it's an illusion. And the point that I'm making is to get you to comprehend what we say when we're saying think out of the box. So now, how would you connect your dots?
Every which way possible, and I still can do it 4 lines.
All right.
I didn't do it.
All right. How many? Good enough.
Tell you or show you.
I want you to show them on.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're exercising.
Now, when you said did you say that they had to all be on a line or they all had to be connected?
No, this is what. Let's repeat.
Because I'm like,
You got a 9 dot. Hold up. You got a 9 dot matrix, right?
yes.
And the exercise is to connect all 9 dots with 4 straight lines without removing the pen from the paper. Right? So you'll use a color to do so. All right, now, those of you who want to take pictures of this, take pictures of this because you need to know, let's say this.
See the before and then see after I mess
And
it
this
up.
is projection. This is projection or false matrix, right? The masses are trained that the U.S. is a country. False. The masses are trained that the U.S. is a continent. False. Right? The U.S. is actually an abbreviation for unum sanctum, operations of the priesthood, placed in a political forum for world dominance, to enforce the unum sanctum bulls of the Church of Rome under the Spanish Inquisition. That's why it's presented as a country, so that you can think in your mind, this is my mother. I will submit to her, because that's the nature of life on the planet, is the matriarchy, are we clear? So when the mentality is that it's a country, you have a sense of obligation to submit to her authority. But her is really the church, U.S. You see? It's unum sanctum. So I just wanted to, then this is enforced with the doctrine of discovery, which I shared with you a copy. Now, in your spare time, you want to analyze that. Then go into your flash drive that we gave you, look up unum sanctum, and then analyze it, and you will have the fundamental manual for all European colonial operations across Gaia, the Earth. You'll have the fundamental foundation of all European politics You'll have the fundamental operations for their monetary system, which is totally flawed, their governmental systems of feudal law, and the arrogance that they display to other people that you've been trained like animals to call racism, which it isn't, it's insane. So I just wanted to bring that to your mind. Now, and so to start getting you to be courageous enough to reject falsehood, you need to understand how falsehood is created. That's all. So here's the 9-dot matrix. So connect the 9 dots in one line.
I got them connected here, but I'm not sure how.
You just did it.
I got them here, but I'm trying to think how did I get there?
There's 4 straight lines.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where I
All
started.
right.
I'm trying to remember where I started.
She did it. She actually did it.
But I'm trying to figure out how I do it.
Well, you did it, so what we got to do is duplicate what you just did.
Yes.
I did it too.
You did too?
Yeah, but I cheated. But I did.
Okay. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
I did that. I did not cheat.
That's it.
I did that.
I did that, but I thought you had to close it up.
It's cool.
You said connect.
Then we say, what is the rule?
Oh,
4 straight lines. Connect all 9 dots without lifting your pen from the paper.
now everybody did it now.
What contains people is when they do not think outside of the box.
That was the key. Good job.
First one. Now, just for fun. All right, who else?
I told you.
Who else want to show their prowess? Go ahead. All right, come on, G. Yeah, I know. Come on. Anybody else?
Probably was another way.
Has to be another one.
I ain't know another way.
It's definitely
It's only that way.
Not scribble, straight line.
I got one.
There's no lock. There's no lock lines. There's locks. Those are lots and stuff.
Of course. Two.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh my! Oh my! I did not be laughing.
Hold on. There go 3. I can go down. Still.
4 straight lines.
Okay. Here's 4. And if I wanted to connect them all, like you said, but it's 4 straight lines, like you said, you decide to click it.
Those squiggly are not just
That's also a contract. You got to
That's outside the box. Yeah, you're right, though. You outside the box.
I mean, you could have, I think, Reggie, you could have gone with what I did, but then another could have been.
It didn't matter. You did it. Because that is it. All right, who's next? Those of you who are listening, go ahead and do this, exercise home. And this is done by scholars, etc., in all what you call your erudite learning systems. Because it's really an encouragement of you thinking outside the box. 4 straight lines without removing the pen off the paper. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Listen. 5.
Okay, that's fine. All right, who's next? I know. Who's next? Think outside the box. 2. John? You ready, bro?
Oh, she already did. I mean, I remember what it is.
You remember what I did? I'm so excited.
I saw it on the internet. I Googled it. I cheated.
I did not Google it.
No, I said I Googled it. I mean, I'll go do it, but I Googled it. It's good
I
fact.
did not.
Yeah, I Googled it.
Right, I can't remember. I sat here.
Interesting.
I don't think it's another way to do it.
It has to be another way.
Anybody else? What is the key that you noticed?
But outside the box.
Outside the box.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Aiello.
Yeah.
Oh, Jan, you ready?
No, I'm not ready, right?
The key is to elongate the line.
Yes. There must be straight lines.
But they have to elongate. They have to extend.
Yes.
That's
And
real
I
quick.
think the process was thinking outside the box.
Exactly.
You know, thinking that you had to
In other words, you have to liberate yourself and listen.
I mean, the limitation is the 9 lines. But the other part of it is
4 lines, 4 straight
think
lines.
outside the box. That was the key.
That's the key.
Outside. I got it.
All right. Dr. Miley, you want to come show them again? Your technical skills and abilities, technical skills.
Basically,
My brain is like a retreat. Okay, now I got wet.
Oh, it's good. Moonwalking.
I mean, I wasn't completely, totally. I mean, I think I could have done it another way too, but I did it this way. So these two right here, you need to think in terms of, say, connecting these two, right? Far enough up that you can go like this. What else? Is that 2? I remember what I did now. I know
You did it.
I know I did. This is not the way I did it. I have to start here.
You did when you came off paper.
No, I know that, but I need to go somewhere else. I started. Look, it's going to ultimately look like I did it like that, but that's not the way you do it. No. I already did it once, y'all. Right? Didn't I do it?
Yeah.
You did it once.
Did I do
That
it?
means you can do it again.
Okay. But I think I should have gone like here,
Yeah, that's it.
here, out, 2,
Yep.
3, and then 4. That's how I should have gone.
That's it.
Yeah. That's how I should have done it.
No matter how you do it, from what angle you come from,
You start
The
outside. Yeah.
the principle, you can start from the first step.
Yeah. So, but it's outside. I know that these two had to connect out there to go there, and then go up in this middle. But you don't want to end up here somewhere first.
Well, we have a,
What's your time you coming up?
no, not coming up.
Somebody's got something to say. Somebody's drawing it online in a better way.
Online said, if you make a box around the sides, it will be 4 straight lines,
And the dots will be connected.
Not the middle,
In the box.
but that's not.
Okay, so make a box.
No, they will not.
Box around the dot.
There you go, right.
So if you start at right now, all right, now you go ahead.
Now you go.
Uh-huh.
Everything got to be. Yeah.
There you go.
Dot. Actually, that's on that line, but I'm
Yeah,
just a
but-
little off. But that's it.
So I thought all the dots had
You
connected.
see, you want to come up next to
Yeah.
us?
No, I'm saying, but like there's an open space, an open space.
Going up? You got it now.
I hope so.
Got another one.
Exactly.
You got it.
Exactly. 4 straight lines.
Yeah. Oh, Trisha, I'm sorry, I did that. Can't prove by us, you go up there and do it.
And see, without the will to think outside the box, you would have never done it. That's the point, think outside the box. Willingness to. And likewise, if you're not willing to think outside the box, the priesthood know that they got you. And like when you hear or see, Tom says, when you hear or see, you know, the phrase in books like the Bible, Subpoenaing, in old philosophies, Gnostic philosophies, when you see that people are not that are not afraid or caught in the mystery systems, they're usually ones that do what people consider miracles. They're not miracles, they're not caught in the paradox of containment. And if you really notice, if you really study people, right, you'll notice that most of the people that really, really solve problems for humanity or actually make progress for humanity, people who are not locked in belief systems. Most people that are locked into belief systems are usually stagnated spiritually while thinking they're being spiritual. And this is the key to the priesthood's power over the masses. And then people not being willing or strong enough of their own thoughts to come out of that paradox and think outside the box, never knowing that the miseries that most of them suffer is not some demon devil, it's actually the priesthood's matrix that they're in. And they ain't figured it out yet. That's one of the reasons why I gave you the 9-box matrix. Because this is also part of their training. Do you understand? Now, they know if they can keep you in that mental box, from birth to death, they can pilfer you, or they can feed off your energy. Because remember, everything is energy. And because the priesthood, as a general rule, it's not every priest, but as a general rule, are parasites. You know, this is a tool for them. So dogma is a tool for the priesthood, and this is why they present it as religion, which is a deception. And once they recognize that you don't know the difference between religion and dogma, at that point they got you in their false matrix, and then they can control you by their projected illusions. And you cooperate by your thought energy, by agreement. Because remember, the illusion only lives because of what you call consensus agreement. This is why it's necessary for them to always use guilt. You ever notice that when people are presenting to the masses what they call belief systems, one of the components of their teaching system is guilt? You know, if you don't do this, you shirk, God's going to get you, type thing. And there's no suspecting of being that these people ain't working for no creative force, they're actually the counter. Now, the liberating of people, is why it appears that if people really study them books, or what they call the prophets, they'll recognize, if they pay attention, that the enemies of all the prophets have always been the people who have been promoting dogma in the name of religion. Wasn't no mystery devil, it was always the priesthood. Always. Every instance. Not instant, it wasn't the priesthood. But yet the priesthood is always given the credit for being divine, and in the corner of the prophets, and in the corner of the creative spirit of love. And the priesthood are demons by projecting false matrix and not telling the people the truth of thought and thinking and controlling the illusion that all things are created through the illusion. And so what is relative and the relationships that you interject between each other creates reality. And it's a consensus and not, in fact, it's always an illusion. And so this is why it's important for people to understand how the human machine works, because humans are biological machines, they actually are. To look at them from a mechanism point of view and not get caught in the emotions of them, can actually manipulate them and dial them up and dial them down by controlling the narrative. And this is why it was so important, not morally important, but politically important, for the Europeans or the Romans to exercise librorum indexus librorum prohibitorum and indexus librorum expurgatorius, which is commonly called the Great Christian Book Burnings. And this is so that you would not have access to the knowledge, the established knowledge of the great rules or principles of the universe that have been established on the planet, from time immemorial. Meaning there was no time that these principles were not established. Although they're related philosophically to Hermes Trismegistus, and Hermes is given the name in different areas, like in the book that they'll call Hermes Thought, Thot, and so this is again by when we were talking here at the house, say a month and a half ago or something like that. We reminded people that they knew just if the priesthood would tell them just that alone, it would liberate most of humanity. But humanity has a tendency, because they've been contained in these containers, mental containers, not to be able to liberate themselves. Not that they don't have the capacity to do so, they don't have the will to know that they don't have to be contained. And then because they've adopted the fear systems of the illusions presented by the bishopric under the dogma systems, they are self-contained, so they themselves suppress themselves. And all the priesthood have to do is keep control of the narrative. As long as they keep control of the narrative, they control the being. And then they project you to agreement. And the projecting of agreement is why they always say, do you believe? Do you believe? And it sounds like, that's cool. Yeah, I'm a believer. As soon as you did that, they control the narrative. And it all seems so innocent, doesn't it? Well, it's not innocent at all. It's part of the key to the darkness of the priesthood putting the world in darkness and controlling the people's thought processes by projection, by projecting the illusion and getting you to agree with it in the name of, unqualified, of religion, when it's actually dogma. An illusion, projection, and getting you to agree, and then your energy of thought brings it to reality. Co-creation is called. Islam, Dr. Michael.
Islam. Just a comment, an observation with regard to just the word government. We're dealing with a word that denotes, if you will, that they are governing what we think, governing the mental.
That's what it is.
By virtue of the word itself, government, governmental, and when that government is outside of yourself, and you don't have control of your own mind, it's now when you look at it, you don't see it when you're in the box, when you're in the matrix. But when the curtain is pulled back and you no longer, you see beyond the illusion, now it doesn't make sense that you would need someone else to govern your mind.
This is why you'll see when people begin to think outside the box, that the priesthood get angry and act like that person did something to the Creator, and because he's the priest, he has an obligation to defend the gods. And now they want to kick your ass because you're not in the box. Get back in the box. Now, and so remember, the box is defined by tenets that they call the beliefs. Now, if the people don't know Hermetic law, they get captured by the tenets, not knowing that they're fences. They're mental fences. But their purpose is to keep you in a container. And thus, that's how they steal your power. And so people aren't aware that these people are vampires. You know, and so from a karmic and a dharma perspective, people, the priesthood will do stories to tell them what it is. And this way they remove the dharma off themselves. Now, and so this is why when you really understand how things operate, you know, the good and bad type thing, it's relative. It's really relative. And so when you understand that, you begin to take control of your life by taking control of your thought processes. And this is again even back to what the brother's saying. It's contract. It's consenting. And so they'll make movies as an example, like I remember it's one movie that I saw, I think about a couple of years ago. It's called Let Me In. And it's about this little young girl who's a vampire. But one of the things that they emphasized in the movie was they can't come past your door unless you offer them in. So they'll say, let me in, and you're cool. As long as you don't say, yeah.
Can I come and get a pair of sandwiches and get some tea?
Well, it's no good. The refrigerator over there. Yeah. You're in trouble. You know? And if you understand, also, like when you see in the Bible, when they talk about Yeshua, and they'll code it, and this is also projection. Keep in mind, this is also projection. Like when they did the Nicene Council, and they changed Yeshua to Jesus in order to cover up the real relationship and the real history and the linguistic form, right? So once people accepted Jesus, in their mind of actually getting to that which is good, they were actually serving Constantine to this very day. It's called projection. And so the foundation is an illusion, although some of the principles presented are truths. And so people would mix it. You know, they not understanding how things work, they would not understand illusion projection. This is again why we did the non-dot matrix, to get you willing to think outside the box. But the cure is outside the box. It's never been in the box because spirit can't be contained. Once they get you thinking that thought can be contained, this is why they give dogma systems. Smile, brother. This is why they set up dogma systems and call it different versions of religion. Like, what do you have? Or like, I think in Christendom, I think they have like 35,000 different versions or something like that. In Islam, they got about 78. Same thing with Judaism, etc. Now, the masses aren't aware that these are actually control systems set up by the priesthood, having nothing to do with real spiritual development of people. It has to do everything to do with the priesthood having their hands in the estates, the property, and the wealth of the people, sucking their blood. Now, the advantage, and I mentioned this before, but I'm saying this now. The limited, I wouldn't say the advantage, the limited advantage that people who are chosen or tapped on the shoulder and taken into secret societies is to take some of that burden off them by telling them some of the truth of the Hermetic laws so that they don't fall victim to the dogma systems, thank you, that are in the social order for human trafficking and human control. That is done in the guise of religion. The lack of a will for the people to look at these things and assess them honestly is why it's hard to liberate humanity. Because they associate the dogma systems with the divine when actually it's the illusion. And I know it's difficult for people to handle that, but however, that's the truth. The other deal is you can't say that you're going to kill because I told you. Now, the uncomfortable thing is people finding their position of will to think and to step out of that false matrix and still try to maintain relationships. You see? Now, that deals with personal as well as governmental. So, the other reason why it's important why I'm making these points to you, because for people to really be liberated from corrupt government, they have to have a knowledge on how things really work. This is another reason why I brought this up as a subject. And particularly since there's what you call a civil war going on with the dark priesthood who've been running this planet. And so you'll see that in the battles that's going on between the Ku Klux Klan and Donald Trump. And we're not talking about good and bad in the sense that people look at it. You understand? It's not a defense of Donald Trump either, necessarily.
Clarification, when you say between Ku Klux Klan and Donald Trump, are you talking about the Democratic Party?
The Democratic Party is the Ku Klux Klan.
Right, but I wanted you to clarify that because some people might say, I didn't hear anything about Donald Trump and the KKK.
Now, this is called projection and illusion. So how many people, and particularly in Asiatic communities, vote for the Ku Klux Klan not knowing that that's the Ku Klux Klan and why they never make progress? But they keep voting for non-progress. What is Donald Trump really doing? It means that if you are a metaphysician and you really understand the political platform of Moor Sanctum, you would not take Donald Trump personally, nor any of the others personally. You simply look at the chess moves that they're making and let them show who they really are. Now, what do you see? Now, so the point of it is, if you have preconceived, controlled ideas, you will start taking sides and getting all emotional and personal, and you fall right into that false matrix. Are we clear? And not recognize that you got a battle of the priesthood of what you call the guards, battling each other for power for the new paradigm outcome. Meaning that when you comprehend or understand what's really going on in what you call the physicality, what you allude as politics, you already know, if you're really looking at it metaphysically, that it's a secondary or third level reflection of what is taking place or already taking place on what you call the abstract realm. In layman's terms, and it's an improper concept, but I'll express it this way, what they call the spiritual versus the physical. That's an improper really concept, but it's not really like that. It's really dimensional, sort of like thing. And so, if you really look at them from a metaphysical point of view, Donald Trump would represent, I didn't say he is, good cop to the bad cop system. The projection of the Klan is to make the world look at Donald Trump like he's the negative. That's called projection. Are we clear? Those who don't know the history and the politics would fall for it and then project their own energy that would actually keep the old guard in power to their own injury. Do you understand? These are chess moves. You know, most people don't have the will, not that they don't have the ability, to really look at what I just said objectively, because most of them already have biased ideas, because most of them are already caught in that false matrix. So they have preconceived ideas of what they think Trump is, what Trump is not, and he's against them, he's racist, and a whole bunch of other stuff, which is a controlled narrative. Do you understand? But not knowing that they're actually under mind control. That don't mean that you're being sympathetic with Trump at all. It means, are you studying this chess? Or are you getting involved with the personalities? You get involved with personalities, you caught the matrix. If you're able to stay objective, look at the chess moves. Don't look at the masks that everybody's wearing, because they're all wearing masks. Personality is masked. Go ahead. Get a mic. Get a mic.
Anybody has a question, just raise your hand and bring the mic around.
It's can we analyze a scenario like, just say, the recent current events with immigration? Let's look at immigration and see how the KKK versus the Republican Party are handling the immigration based off
perception.
Just say based off treaties, based off unum sanctum, based off false borders,
Yes.
things of that nature.
All right. Now let's look at the illusion. The illusion is presented that these people, all of them, the first illusion is that they're Americans. And they're not. It may be one or two of them that are Americans. And don't necessarily recognize it, because probably those two are caught in the illusion thinking that America is a country. So they are in the false matrix too. Are we clear? And are approaching these dynamics from that point of view. They're still in the false matrix. Secondly, the issue of immigration deals with the principle of diversity. Diversity of nationality and diversity of citizenship, which is the issue and is being diverted. Are we clear? They're dealing with symptom. So now they got them on another layer of illusion. Then they have a wall that was built after the fake illusion of the Mexican-American War, which is really the European war against Americans under the Spanish Inquisition. So that you don't pay attention to the fact that the Europeans are waging war against Americans, that Mexicans are Americans. Illusion. And yet a whole false paradigm in history is built on that illusion. Therefore, there are certain preclusions of mentality or state of mind that the people are in. So they're looking at that wall for holding out the foreigners when the foreigners is the one that built the wall. Illusion. Are we looking at this? Now, deal. Donald Trump as an example. A member of the Knights Templars, so you got to know the history of Knights Templars, which I'm not going to get into at this time. Then you got to know the history of the feud between the popes of Rome and the Knights Templars. Then you got to remove your concept about this whole illusion of the wall, because the wall implies territorial jurisdiction, doesn't it? Doesn't it? So then when they're talking about the territorial jurisdiction, they'll say protecting America. Right? Well, Mexico is America. What you talking about? See the illusion? But most people will sit around and argue and start formulating opinions against Trump one way or another because of what the party line is without examining, because they can't read, is number one. They don't know the difference between countries, continents, and political jurisdictions, another layer of illusion. Then their thought processes are projected by the Ku Klux Klan that owns the press since 1861 with the coup d'etat against Lincoln to overthrow the republic that is politically existing but non-operative. And the political platform operating from the District of Columbia on Fleet Street, England, from the Circle Church of the Chancery, for the Roman goddess named Columbia, from the District of Columbia. Do you see the layers of illusion? So most people, when they don't know the illusion, they don't know how to look at things. This is why when you talk real political science, that it doesn't make sense to them. They think that you're talking against your own people. Yeah, Trump's a racist guy. Well, race is called a species, called human. That's number one. And the human species is expanded into families called nations. Number two. The diversity issues between nations is called consular, treaty, interchange venues. Is anybody bringing that up? No. So when Trump said to them Democrats who were attacking him, go back home to your country, fix the problems in your country, then come back and tell us how to fix the problems here. Then they call him a racist. They said that's a racist statement, which it is not. Do you understand what I'm saying? But people who are controlled like puppets fall for the illusion against their own interests, when actually he's being forced to fix stuff. But the people have been living under feudal law for so many generations, they don't even know what a republic order of government is, which is really what fixes things. So they themselves keep voting for the mobocracy that they're suffering from under the Ku Klux Klan that they call the Democratic Party, and don't even know it's the Ku Klux Klan. Do you see the illusion? And who will vote for their enslavement? People who will call themselves people of color don't even know that people of color is a legal term which means artificial people outside of the human family, and think that they're being intelligent and being controlled by people that look like them, who in secret are Masons and know that these people aren't black, and know that they're not people of color, know that that's a legal status, and know that they themselves are claiming to be Constantinian property, stock chattel under the Christian order, which is why they catch an L, which is why they don't have no estate. And they themselves will vote for it. You see the illusion? Now, so, as we said earlier, they will make statements along this line. These people can't come into the U.S. without coming through the proper ports of entry. Then in the next sentence, these people can't come to America without coming through the proper ports of entry. Then in the next sentence, these people can't come to the United States without coming through the proper ports of entry. Those are three different entities they just spoke of. And the masses who don't know the illusion think at each time they're talking about country. When they're talking unum sanctum rulership.
So that,
Right to your face.
so what you're saying is that everyone is a part of America, South America, Central America, Mexico, North America. But then
And the only ones that are not are the Europeans here challenging everybody else's identity. And no one has the intelligence to check them and to rebut their entire position.
So, getting back to Trump, which you mentioned,
Get in your mic there.
the
Get on your mic because we're not hearing you.
The Republicans are actually telling the truth about Trump.
Exactly.
Racist.
Exactly.
Okay. I want to be
But the narrative is that he is. Now, but hold on. Now, the word racist is misused because race is the human species.
exactly.
Anyone who's not a racist don't love the human species. But they put a connotative presentment as meaning in order to color the narrative so they can control the people. So they know that these people of color have the mentality of boys and girls and can't read. So they will be controlled by the dark priesthood that are veiled in what you call the political forum.
So they miseducated people.
Well, back to fact. Education is training for animals. Erudition is learning systems for humans. Now, so you keep the animals under what you call the Christian Black Code, so they will be known as Negroes, black colored Indians, whatever they want to be this week, outside of the human family, but they want human rights. Listen, they want human rights. They agree to be monkeys, which is the Negro. Because they can't read. Hold on. Listen. So now, the fact that they caught in a false matrix does not excuse them. Ignorance of the law is not excused, because the law begins with self. And so anyone who does not honor their pedigree, their bloodline, their mothers and their fathers, in law, have no right of heritability. And those who sit around and defend it are called conversos. And that's really what's going on.
So religion is a form of control.
Put it this way. Now you're going back to the matrix again. The masses don't get religion. They get dogma.
Okay.
And it's labeled religion.
Okay.
Now, so when there's a little bit of wake up, they condemn religion that they never even got as being the culprit of their mental midgetry. No, dogma is the culprit, and it came from the church, who they think is the middleman between the creator and the universe, when they are the demon.
The creator is you.
Exactly. This is back to understanding the rule of the law of oneness. Now, and back to the Hermetic principles, and I think you can, if you want to expound, you can.
I do want to say one thing.
When we were talking in general, just as we talk in general, right?
Yeah.
And when I was on my way up here, I was talking to a young brother who recognized me on the train. Then was a few other people too, and I ended up talking with them on the train, then off the train. So we had class for about an hour and a half before I came down here. And some of these things came up because these are things that are injuring the youth. And pleasantly surprised, a lot of them are studying, but still you can see certain concepts of wrong. And one of the things that I said to one of the young brothers, because they get into this, which is logical. What do we do to try to fix this thing? I said, if you really want to help somebody honestly, because it's going to take years to unravel what they've been soaked in. If you want to immediately if somebody's open to be liberated, give them a cup of Allium and tell them to study.
Speaking of, there's a part in the text where it references religion, and it mentions that religion is that intuitive awareness or recognition of the existence of the one's power and one's relationship to it. And I felt that was a pretty...
Yes, now it's straightforward. Now, however, what are details? So, repeat that, and then I'm going to give you an analysis.
As well. Religion is the intuitive awareness or recognition of the one's power and one's relationship to it.
Oh, so now one doesn't know what the oneness power is. The philosophy that goes with it, it's a beautiful statement that goes nowhere. Do you understand? Meaning, like, for instance, and like one of the things that I said to who was I talking to? I was talking to someone earlier. I think it was an older woman who was getting, Afrocentric philosophical with me, and I listened to her and talk about religion and stuff, and always open. And I said, have you done a sun chart on yourself? Because if you don't know just that basics, and you're talking religion, you're already off base because you got to know yourself and your relationship to the natural order to begin to even discuss these things. And this is back to where people keep assuming that they're religious because they got some kind of emotional attachment to some club. That's the dogma. Are we clear? And it's sort of like discussing, well, if you're going to run the store, right, what you really got to do is be a good cashier. Well, did anybody bring up the subject that you better learn how to count and subtract and multiply and get to be natural with you? Well, I ain't getting into that right now. Cash register. You better put gloves on and lead them away from that cash register. And this is pretty much what's going on with people. We will deal with data without refined knowledge. So if one does not know that religion is cosmology, astrology, and the philosophies that are attended to it in moral and ethical principles by the studies of nature and its relationship to yourself, and then having a knowledge of how your mother built the masculine or the fetus, not only the fetus, which is called masculine, the monad, and the gate that she brought you in, the energy, the package, the hidden personality, moon, descending energy, and you're going to talk religion, you're full of shit. Because that's what it is. The point that I'm saying is you know that the masses don't get that training. Though you know that the imams got it, the rabbis got it, the priesthood got it, the masons have it, Eastern Stars have it, Illuminati got it, Clanners got it, everybody got it but the believers who are now tithing, which they don't even know means Roman tax. So they're being taxed by the very Romans that they think is some kind of pathway to what they think God is, which is a generic term. They don't even know it's generic, and nobody's telling them. And they're being played by these vampires using Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, whatever game they flavor of ice cream. You get the point where I'm going? Now, it's not a condemnation of the people that just telling the truth of what they're suffering from. Now, their will to come out of that paradox and start dealing with realities, they got to know the fundamental phenomena of how things work in this universe. There we go with your hermetic law. No different than you'll see people who get caught in these boxes of paradigms, just like say your aunts or something like that, and say, see, because I'm Egyptian and stuff like that, and you just see become taught and stuff like that, and then you say, well, do you know about Hermes Trismegistus? I ain't into that. I'm into talk because I'm into Afrocentricity. The talk is Hermes. You know what I mean? And if you don't know how these transitions have been made to put humanity in darkness, you become victim to the priesthood. And I'm telling you, that's exactly what is happening. Are we clear? When you become conscious, more conscious of how things work, this is why you see the priesthood start attacking any forums that start getting organized that actually start what they would call educating, what is really making the people erudite. So they want to keep them in the educational formats, which is for animals, and you're trying to pull them out of that into the levels of erudition. They do not want that. Why? At that point, the priesthood loses power. At that point, you are empowered, that already exists with you, that has been stolen from you by the priesthood who've been faking to actually been spiritually raising you when actually you've been drinking your spiritual blood. They're vampires. And then, when someone exposes that, they'll usually attack the one who exposes it rather than recognizing the vampire who's still standing behind the pit that they're pulling them to, or the pulpit. You understand? So, the same way, like a person can study different philosophies, right? They go to mosque, church, synagogue, and go through all the cycles of trying to develop, which is part of the conversation I had today too. And then you give them fundamental knowledge, the value that liberates them from all of it. But they have to be willing to accept the truth. But also they can take it and look at all of them and now comprehend what is actually veiled within the dogma systems and recognize that the priesthood has been playing with them. This is another thing that they don't want you to recognize, because now you might end up choking them. When you recognize all these generations from grandmama on down that these parasites have been robbing you, using the word God, Jesus, Allah, Moses, Muhammad, and you be thinking that these people were honorable. Well, no, they weren't. And most of them aren't. And so get over it. Get over yourself. Get over your ego. Now, if you're willing to be liberated, now you got to start taking responsibility, don't you? Don't you? All right? Now, key. Once, and it's not once, it's inclusive of other experiences, because everything is relative. Once you start looking at examining relationships, you recognize that the human experience is a series of experiences. And there is no stopping points. There's no one. And so it's difficult for people to recognize or to accept that the human experience in this vibrational form is a series of relationships. And so they get upset because they're trying to stabilize something that is not stable. So now you have a difficulty there, don't you? So now, it's true. So, it's true. So many people aren't willing to tell that truth because they want to stabilize, keep them still enough to rob them, not to help them develop, to rob them. So they say, God, then God, gave me sandwiches. People just start getting starry-eyed and stuff. At that point, they're already entering a false matrix. And this parasite, who they're called a priest, is looking for the opportunity to get their hands in their pocket, to get grandma's house that should have went to the grandchildren, and then the priest going to get that too. All in the name of the Lord. And these people don't know it's the Lords of London that they're working for under unicycling policy. You know, just like when you see, or like in the Secret Treaty of Verona, when you see that they're ameliorating their own interests, they're totally conscious of what they're doing. The masses aren't conscious. So now let's go back to Trump. So, one of the things politically that is really a beautiful thing to see from a chess move point of view is these four sisters they call the squad, right? Who is giving Trump help, right? But whose positions also are false and disingenuous. Do you understand? Now, people who are dealing with emotions will get caught into the race argument and not really examine what's going on. Now, the other deal is, what is the other layer of the illusion that they're not dealing with? Trump is interfering with their human trafficking and their child organ transplant business that's done near that border and that are actually done in tunnels and in underground. Like you notice all across North America, you see the military operations of the medical industry expanding buildings after buildings after buildings and advertising, you need a new heart, you need a new lung, you need a new hip and chip, you need a new brain stem, and they're killing children to get them. And they've been doing it for quite some time. Trump is interfering with that, with the censorship. So now they're separating families and children. Well, they've been separating our families for decades. Here, they've been running the men out of families. Most of these women don't have men no more. They ain't talking about them families that they're breaking up here under the Christian black codes, are they? Are they? You think they care about their Mexican children? No, they do not. They're dealing with a political system because they're Trump. That's one of the most poorest borders for the Bush family, Clinton family, Pierce family, the Morgan family, and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds with the drugs and stuff that's coming across that border through tunnels, etc. And Trump is interfering with it. So they don't want that wall. It ain't because they love anybody. Now, look at this. The average of late compensation for the average congressman and congresswoman is average around $174,000 loose. How is it that these people within 1 or 2 years become multi-millionaires? Because of the child trafficking, the pedophilia, pedophilia that's been going on secretly with the priesthood forever that they're protecting. They aren't interested in these children being separated from their families. They're interested in protecting their business investments with the medical military operations of organ transplant and what they call the elixir that they drink called the adrenochrome, which is children's blood. Then, all of your burger joints, that's where they get rid of the carcasses. And so they can sell, 2 for $5 burgers with soda. Flavorful too. They're eating their own children. And so from a karmic perspective, this relieves some of the dharma and the karma. So the people who really don't know unum sanctum operations are looking at the surface narrative controlled by the Ku Klux Klan party that look like innocent sisters who are being racistly attacked by this European guy, telling them to go home. He didn't say for anybody home. They twist it. But someone who's emotional buys into it and not paying attention that they're supporting the Ku Klux Klan party that's been destroying their own families and claiming to be Americans and they're not, and enforcing the Christian black codes that's been destroying the people of the land in both Mexico and up here under the Christian black codes. And they're mad because Hillary didn't get in, who's a daughter of the American Revolution. To make sure that Asiatic women can't keep their men, which is why they ain't got no families. And they're all sympathetic and emotional about this, aren't they? Trump's a demon. Not that he ain't, I'm not saying that he ain't. Them other ones that's really the demons.
But that goes back.
It's called projection.
It goes way back though in time.
It's called unum sanctum.
Yeah, well,
It's called the U.S.
But they broke up the family.
Get on the mic.
I'm sorry, what you're saying is that they're breaking up the family, but that started
Stay in the mic.
way before today's world.
Well, what is unum sanctum?
It's the U.S.
Well, unum sanctum is what we're talking about. That is the U.S. That's what's in operation.
This is what I'm getting to. When I was a boy, I saw that happening. I didn't even know what it was. Other than the fact that the women, like people who lived in private, that would be minorities, they had to tell on their husbands in order to get this thing called welfare.
Well, that is called,
That was breaking up the family.
what's the woman? The Sanger?
Margaret Sanger.
Yes. Yes. What that is the genocide policy coming from unum sanctum.
Okay.
Now,
I didn't
so,
know anything
hold
about
on. This-
Okay.
What are we talking about?
We are now.
Unum sanctum.
Yes.
When the disconnect exists with the targeted people, they're in the illusion and have a tendency to defend the platform that actually is suppressing them. Being caught in the emotion. Do you understand? Look,
How
look,
did
look.
they take that illusion and flip it so that
It's called controlling the narrative. Now, point. If you can get a people who are claiming to be spiritual, I didn't say they're spiritual, claiming to be spiritual passionately, and this is through their communities, and they don't even know their own pedigree and bloodline. Do you know how much divine conflict that actually is? We can have opinions with each other, right? Politics or beliefs and stuff like that. When people don't know really hermetic law or divine law, they don't know the line between ens legis operations and divine law. And so they have a tendency to be tricked into violating divine law and then don't understand that they're getting certain consequences that are unremovable. So if people don't know the difference between divine law and ens legis or legislated law, which they do not, that is a whole platform of rabbits in a cage who think they can run to the other corner and get saved. Type thing. This is our community. Are we clear? Yes. And they're operating with a sense of security in their thought processes of security and salvation that is totally illusionary, but they're confident in it. This is called black church. And that includes church, my synagogue, but when you say just a couple. Where's the success? The only one successful is the corporate state and the guy standing there with a $60 million plane and a $3,000 suit, and all the widows have lost all their pennies, and they deliver their children to these priests, thinking they have some kind of spiritual relationship when they're actually working for Rome, and always have been. But they hide behind words like Allah, Jesus, Muhammad, and people get starry-eyed and give them their lunch money. And grandmom's house that should have gone to the child who now got to work at Mickey D's with a college degree because they can't get a JOB. And definitely ain't going to never pay off their student loan. They're enslaved forever. But they're saved in their mind, not in reality. They're living a total false narrative. Now, the point of it is for those who've been bleaching these people, is to keep that illusion going on in order to protect their position. Are we clear? That is called the political platform. The leading proponent is called the Demon Party, the Democratic Party of the Kaikos Ku Klux Klan order. The grand protectors of the Christian creed of Constantine. That's called the Democratic Party. Who's the main supporters of that party? Let's tell the truth. Who is the main supporters of that party? I can't hear y'all. Does everybody hear like? And then they wonder why they're in trouble. Now, Trump is interfering with their entrenched corruption, and rather than people look at the entrenched corruption, they're following the narrative. Trump's a racist. Trump colluded with the Russians. The Russians took the sandwiches and ran with them. And every time there's an examination, it's found to be false. And they keep on moving it anyway. Which means they're willfully entertaining a false narrative. Which means they have a right to the misery. They're consenting to their misery. Do you see the point? That's not a defense of Trump, that's examining the chess pieces.
But what about these Democrats, the freshmen
Democrats,
the freshman Democrats who just got in there? Is it possible that they don't know that they are members of the Ku Klux Klan?
No.
I'm only asking.
All right, let's do it this way. As an example, I'm a freshman carpenter. Is it possible that I don't know what a saw is?
Yeah, it's possible, but I don't see how.
But, well, if I'm a freshman carpenter, I may not be the best cutter, but if I don't know what a saw is, I ain't a carpenter. I don't know what a hammer is. Now let's look at this. When people take oaths of office, those oaths of office are allegiances to principles. And those principles are called constitutions and treaties. Well, the office is predicated in that. When someone becomes a cook, that's a pot. Is it possible that someone don't know what a pot is? Wait a minute. Someone's become a cook. Seasons? It's possible that they don't know what seasons are. Fire? Hell. Is it possible that this cook, is it possible that they're freshmen? They don't know what this is. That's part of our problem. We keep excusing the inexcusable. We keep assuming that people, because they're new to the faces of the masses, and they don't project certain information that they don't know. Surely they don't know. Most of them in the business because they're looking to get pilfered. Most of them in those positions because they're already paid before they get there. They don't, most of them, 99% aren't there because of some moral caring for the people. They're there because they're political hacks that are paid for and supported and put in position to be lobbyists for the United States Corporation Company, of which most of them have secret stock in at the expense of the dumb people who ain't figured this game out yet. It's just that the ones been there longer got more stock. If you want to look at it that way, then I'm with you. If you want to look at it in the way of innocence, no.
Makes sense.
And don't let anybody make excuses. Look down.
Oh, it's I just, you stated it's a, hold on, it's in there somewhere. Oh, yeah. Here it is, sorry. The question was, do they know? Freshmen, junior, sophomore, senior?
Yes, they know.
Almost dead. Yeah, they know. Just they keep their phone. They know. Recently, I said recently as this Tuesday, this past, I went to the recording facility, county quarters facility, and I was submitting a document. And the clerk, I could tell from her energy that she was having a rough morning. And I knew instantly that I was not going to entertain that energy. But I had already prepared my documents and did the work that I needed on my documents. So I already knew there was energy that went ahead of her and went ahead of me. So when I got to the window, she said, yeah. I said, that's not a good reading. And I said, well, this is what I need. And then she said, well, I don't know what that is. I said, excuse me, we're not going to play that game. You're a recorder. You're a clerk. We're not going to play that game that you don't know what I'm talking
They
about.
know exactly what.
And when I said it like that, she got up and went and got the document and handed it to me. Because I said, I need your energy form. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, we're not going to play that game. We're not going to play that game. Because I don't know what you're on this morning, but I already know I came before you saw me physically. I've already came in the building. And so she got up and walked, danced around in a little circle, and all of a sudden the paper just appeared from nowhere out of thin air. And then she kind of slid it to me, and she was like, well, I need to know how much you paid. I said, well, when you can figure that out from 1913, we can talk about that. But until then, you need to record this document and let's keep it moving. Because they play games. Our people, our own people, will play these
They're all
games with you.
commercials.
They look just like me and you, and they will try to stop your progress. But they know. And then she tried to say, oh, is this blood on this paper? I said, figuratively, yes. So you figure that one out, since you want to play games. Figure that one out. Yes.
They know.
They know.
Because they know that the red ink is the noble.
Exactly.
And the true sovereign of the land.
Exactly.
All right. Distinguished from corporate property of Constantine, of whom they are working for.
Exactly.
And they know the hell who they're working for. Now, whether or not, what they recognize is that the masses are still asleep.
Exactly.
And to keep you asleep, keep them in the JOB kickback. And also allows them to maintain, patting themselves on the back with their known hypocrisy. Because they're comfortable as long as they know that or believe that you don't know that they're sellouts. The same way when the preachers sit around and talk about, the Lord's, when in secret they all know that the Lord's that they're talking about is in England. The Lords of London under the secret treaty of Verona, to which they actually have a documented pledge. A documented pledge. That's all of the clergy, not some of them, all of the clergy. But you're not supposed to know that. Now when people start waking up to that, so like Malcolm, then they want to murder him. the priesthood murdered them. You understand? They may be under the name of minister and a whole bunch of other stuff. They're all part of the club of keeping humanity asleep. Are we clear? Now, kid, when people begin to have fundamental knowledge, foundational knowledge, the Hermetic laws, Kybalion, the Gnostic wisdom, then they can look at any so-called religion and peel off all the BS and get down to the aggregate, which will be very simple principles. At that point, the priesthood and the vampires, you just defanged them. You took all their, and you took the straw out your neck. Now everybody's upset with you. Why are they upset? Because you woke up. You understand? Now, their job is to keep you from getting there. But also, their jobs of their leaders in your communities is to keep you misdirected emotionally by talking skin colors, racism, things that sound good. Total diversion. Total diversion. Not at all the truth. Not at all the truth. Now, deal among themselves in private meetings. They talk like we're talking right now. They have absolutely total contempt for the people that they're raping. No conscience whatsoever. You don't think they know about this stuff? You think it's a possibility that they didn't know that bike they stole was my grandma's bike that she bought me? Yeah, they didn't care whether your grandma, they stole your bike. Well, did they understand that I said stop thief? Why did they turn around? Probably because you was naive and that you expected them to turn around. Interesting. Stop thief. In that pocketbook bag. Oh, don't you dare open that wallet. Oh, I know. No, he really didn't open that wallet. Do you think he understood what he was doing? He's new to this. I didn't see him around before. Do you know that he's still... Good point. New or old, they're all criminal thieves and know that they're criminal thieves. The deal of this is that we don't seem to get it. And then we keep passing this false paradigm to the next generation and then blaming the devil for the miseries that they impart. And it's really the priesthood. Always was, and it is. Past, present, and they intend it to go on into the future. Donald Trump is interfering with a lot of that. So everybody's mad at him. That's not a defense of Donald Trump. It's telling you if you understand political chess, you can see what's going on and you don't get caught up in the personalities. And you don't get caught up in the narrative. You start looking at news, things that are said, but you always measure it by your knowledge of the real political canvas. And then you see where the leanings are. Right? So the pledge of all these politicians is to uphold and support the Constitution for the United States. Is that not true? Article 4, Section 4 says a Republican form of government for all states in the Union. Is that not true? Where the hell does democracy platform come from? Well, did these people figure this out yet? That's the plan. You see the point? But that don't make Donald Trump and the Republican Party right, because they're corrupted too. Are we clear? But if you're looking at the two parties, he's leaning toward the right side, which is why he's unpopular. Because they can't buy him. How many people know that Donald Trump don't take one note for that job? he gets no pay whatsoever. So what makes these people think that he's not in that position on moral and focused political purpose for cleaning up after this bullshit? He won't take a dime. They can't buy him, which is another reason they're mad, so he can't be bought. So they're doing everything to get him out of that office because he's dismantling the corrupt, institutionalized pathways, which is really what that fence or wall represents, not really the physical wall. The wall is the wall of protection that they have from the Chancery Circle Church of England through the judicial system to protect the corrupt politicians that are entrenched, that have been raping this nation under the guise of sovereign politics. That's why they made Trump. And again, like I said, I'm not defending Trump. I'm just looking at the chess pieces. But I also know that the average person that don't know the history and don't know politics will usually follow the party line, and they made a Trump because everybody else has made a Trump. They don't need no information or facts. It ain't about facts. It's about prejudice and party loyalties and protecting the existing political corruption while everybody turns a blind eye so no one's looking at the fact that they've been sacrificing children and eating them also. Do you understand? Why? Because half of them go to the burger joints and eat the children too and call it beef. So they know they're just as hypocritical and guilty as the rest of them cannibals, or you call them petrodollars. So after they rape some of them and steal their organs, they send them body, the carcasses, the parts they don't use, to the burger joints. And so these people get 2 for $5 with a soda and fries. Man, it's cheap. And wonder why they got all kinds of sicknesses. And like you said, it goes way back. What is it? It's unum sanctum, that's what it is. Now, the deal is, are the people aware of that? That's the issue. That the U.S. is not a country. It's unum sanctum. Go ahead, Mike.
It's fine. Okay, since we're on that topic, we mentioned unum sanctum again. I was also reading where it indicates that the U.S. is removing their jurisdiction from the UPU. I know the UPU deals with the trade and commerce and the banking and things of that nature.
Yes.
So what is that in relation to?
Are they removing it, or is it because they lost control of their petrodollar under the unum sanctum policy, and between 70 and 90% of the world trade windows are frozen, which means there's going to be a lot of malls closing because they can't do the ship to shelf, i.e. stealing from other countries through trade, giving them the private commercial papers of the Jesuits that the dumb masses think is money. And just because the dumb masses are dumb and insist on being dumb, it doesn't matter. The world is not trading with them anymore. How about that being what it is?
I was thinking that.
No, you know that.
Okay, you're right.
So now the controlled narrative of the people for the people would be as if they're being victimized by other countries trading with them, as opposed to other countries stopping these foreign Europeans who faking as Americans, using the power of the Constitution with having no allegiance to it, and raping them, and then going bombing and boring them out after raping them, and then acting like they're victims. And the world don't want to deal with them no more. How about that's what's happening?
I was following the trend and just looking at some the corporations and how they were moving. And it was talking about how, Walmart was shutting down, 2,700 stores or something like that.
Kmart is Sears. Kmart is Sears.
Yes, Kmart is Sears. And you have other venues that are consolidating where they're moving, like as you stated, products from one venue to more of a centralized city, like bringing it closer to the city and stocking those shelves. However, they having the war with the corporations such as Amazon that do not have the shelves. So I was just looking at all this movement
That's a
taking place.
front. Let's look at this.
Right.
When you deal with Amazon as an example, you deal with roughly between 1 point on the high point, on the high side, 1.5, not even 2% of the real business trade. So that's a cover for other issues, which means by percentage, when you look at the numbers or the finance that they're moving, right, Amazon, it's massive to you, to me, all clear. But to the overall trade, you're talking about 1, not even 2%. So therefore, these malls aren't closing down because of Amazon. But they're using it as an excuse to cover up the fact that no one's buying U.S. Treasury bonds. Are we clear? And that the trade windows are freezing up. So Amazon's, they're out businessing us. And that's why we had to close 5 malls last month. No. Because they can't restock. How about that? Which is the truth. Now, control narrative is to give you the Amazon argument. This is for people who don't understand politics. Now, so the masses will follow that party line, and this is what keeps them in power. The masses are willfully ignorant. Horribly, willfully ignorant to their own injury, and will attack people who pull them out of this mess, like Trump. The masses will attack Trump when actually, and he's not a savior, he's a good cop compared to bad cops. That's fact. That's not opinion, that's fact. They'll attack him. It's sort of like, as you're going down the highway, right? And then you said, you heard somebody screaming. Stop the car, stop the car. I heard somebody screaming. You're crossing this little bridge, right? And I thought some swimmers were in there or something, backstroke, stuff like that. And the guy in the middle of the screen, with the hand. You're like he's in trouble. And you say, well, get the raft. We just came from the beach. Get the raft and throw the raft out there and let them ride around. Hurry up, I'll get a rope. We were around stockings and stuff with time to it. You doing all this Christian stuff. And then you throw the raft in the water. All right. And then you throw the raft in the water. You got it. Can't swim, right? And then all of a sudden they go, oh, thank Jesus, oh, Lord. And he grab it and oh, wait a minute. This is plaid. I'm Baptist. How dare you throw me a plaid raft? And this is kind of what it is with the people. Their belief systems will commit them to political and economic death. Do you understand? They will follow the party line of whatever mainstream media that's controlled by the Ku Klux Klan presents to them. Because they don't even know that you got 6 conglomerate owners of the media for mind control from Langley, Virginia, and Westminster, London, and the entire judicial system operating on the land, which is unlawful under feudal law, is operated from England. And then they wonder why they can't get justice. But they got a lot of opinions, and they're talking trash against Trump, who's trying to end all that BS. And I'm not defending Trump, I'm just telling you the real politics, what's going on. And who will defend the demons? Most people like you and me that don't know that the Republic order was overthrown to institutionalize their slavery, which is really what they're suffering from today, that they keep calling racism and prejudice, which is really unum sanctum operations entrenched into the politics under the Democratic Party, Ku Klux Klan operations. Now that's fact, that's not opinion. But I guarantee you 90% of them don't even know that because they don't read, they don't study, and they don't understand the politics. But they got a lot of opinions. And usually their opinions is controlled by someone else. But you give them facts, and they'll start talking that facts are the beliefs. And reject the facts. This is where our problem is. Now, unum sanctum, you say way back, sure, it's unum sanctum. Well, how many discuss unum sanctum? They keep talking about skin color. And thinking that they're being competent. They're totally incompetent. Totally incompetent. And so the next generation suffers, they'll blame that on the devil. He's the scapegoat. This is the culture that's among the people. And they think that's intelligent. They really sincerely think that's intelligent. And spiritual. Of course it's none of it. And they'll get angry at you for telling that truth, which is cruel. And rather than admit that they're extreme hypocrites, they'll attack the truth and whoever bears it. And the BS continues. This is really what the wall is about. The wall ain't really that physical wall. It's really about diversity. That's what it's about. It's about Article 2. It's about Section 2, Article 3 of the Constitution, diversity of nationality and citizenship, expatriation and immigration. Meaning that the things are so out of order that everybody's going to have to eventually be identified or the society will collapse. You see that? Sam? So, to bring that up, see, so now when you deal with the census, what they have done with the census? The census is that a mixed brand system of nom de guerre in with just a couple of nationalities on a platform of citizenship obligation when 90% of it is a total fraud and is essentially destroying the integrity of nationhood. And if it's not fixed, all nations will lose their sovereignty and will come under the Jesuit order under one world rule government. And they will be chipped too. And those who don't submit will be turned off. And they're sitting around talking about Trump's a racist. You see the point? They don't make it to you. They're totally diverted. Because they can't see past their nose. They can't see the forest for the tree. Their face is on a tree. They can't see the forest. But they got 100 opinions on about forestry. That's really what's wrong. And it's unum sanctum. And the people that are exercising it know exactly what they're doing. Trump is interfering with it. That's not, again, I'm going to say, but people get all emotional. I'm not defending Trump. I'm looking at the chess pieces. Only. No personality. I'm looking at the chess pieces. You know what he's doing? He's putting political pawns out there and they're biting them. He's forcing them to show the world who they really are. Half the stuff that Trump says is not because it really means it. He's playing chess. People who don't pay attention to it thinking that he's really taking positions that he's showing or implying that he's really not having. And they're biting it. And then it's going to turn back on. Why? He has to win the sympathies of the people because they are unsympathetic. If they arrested the treasonous operators in government, 90% of all the government would have to be removed immediately and the whole system would collapse. So he has to systematically get them in position, then fire them. Get them in position, then fire them. Get them in position, then fire them. Get them in position, then pull out indictments. Why? Because the people wouldn't let him do that, although they wanted the shit fixed. The people would rebel. They want it fixed, but they don't want it fixed. They want the benefit of national principle, but they don't want constitutional enforcement. They want the benefit of legitimate government, but they don't want legitimate politicians. They want the truth, but they don't want nobody to tell the real truth. But they don't want all this stuff that's going wrong in their families, in their economics, and everything else. But they want the benefit of fixing. And they want to get in the way of anyone who's going to tell the truth or fix things. So they're mad at Trump for interfering with the wall that they have, and it ain't that wall. It's the chancellor. Now, people who don't know chess thinking that physical wall is what Trump was talking about. Well, that gives them something to look at. That ain't the wall. The wall is the system. And there are protections that they got rooted in the system at all levels. They may call it the deep state. They may call it shadow government. They may call it a lot of things. But it's actually enemies of the state that are running the state. And Trump is interfering with it on a major scale. And he's doing it systematically. But what you must also understand is that Trump is only a figurehead. It's actually a body of men and women behind Trump that's really doing this stuff. And to the point that Trump may be even compromised here or there, it matters not. It's going to get done anyway. And so when people who have been part of the corruption start recognizing their ox is getting ready to be bored, because they see it coming, they're mad. Now, so they want to also keep this illusion going on with people. So keep this in mind. This is back to our business issue, with Amazon, etc. Governments trade with what is called treasury notes or pristine bonds. The masses trade with private commercial paper categorized as fiat, called Federal Reserve debt note, that they think is money, that everybody in politics know is not money, and know that these people ain't even getting paid. But they think they are. They don't know that they're slaves and serfs. So they're trying to protect the system that actually has created the poverty that they've been complaining about. And Trump is coming interrupting this, and they're mad. Are we clear? So they're arguing parties when this is a dog and pony show. Total diversion. What's going on is Unum Sanctum is threatened, because Unum Sanctum has been running this planet for a couple centuries now. In other words, the Jesuits have been running the planet through Unum Sanctum and through the Federal Reserve. And that paradigm is being dismantled. So, what's happening is when the nations don't trade or don't accept the pristine notes, does it cause the dollar to fall? Not the way you think it does. It causes the stock market to fluctuate.
That's my next one. Because I was in a relationship, I was also watching the gold and silver, and it's very volatile at this time. Like it's so up and down. as you watch all the projection of the closing, it's like the silver is at 563 notes to 1 ounce of silver, and the gold has shot up to like 1,125 notes to 1 ounce of silver.
Now look at what they're saying. It shot up.
Mm-hmm.
No, let's look at the truth.
Right.
The devaluation of the false value of the dollar is exposed.
Exactly.
They're not shooting up. Their real value is being exposed.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like saying, you're pulling the bull off the wolf. I think Grandma's transforming into a wolf. Little Red Riding Hood. No, Grandma ain't Grandma. That's wolf. It's not. She's not transforming. She's not mutating. You've been naive. Don't confuse the two. Your illusion is what you're trying to hold on to. So Grandma didn't get her nails done. Those are damn claws. And she didn't get new dentures. Those are fangs and shit. At what point are you going to start faking and start dealing with reality? So the world, this is what's happening. And this is the reality. And look at this and chime in if you please. The masses think that the world runs on the dollar. The world runs on credit. Repeat, repeat, repeat. The masses are trained, not accidentally, to think the world runs on the dollar. The world runs on credit. They're pawns. So when the malls keep closing, they think Amazon's doing it. Because Amazon is cutting out the middleman of the banking system. But that ain't really the issue. The issue is, it's like you go through you could travel this country and you see all the warehouses that used to be stock houses are now condominiums and apartments and stuff. Well, they used to stock stuff and then they ship it to the stores, right? Now you have SKUs. You know the SKUs, the little black lines that they have in the store? So in the store, when they be dink, bag of the stuff, those SKUs are already also what you call order forms, as well as bookkeeping. So it gets to a point, and then what it automatically triggers shipping and trade around the world in interconnected, swift trading venues.
Perpetual inventory.
Of course. So now, here you got a ship in the middle of the ocean, say, example, coming from Taiwan or China, etc. And the orders are coming in, so already they're stocking ships last month for the trend that's coming for what the readings are already saying, what the stock is going to be, and they come directly from the ships on containers, on trailers, to stores, to the shelf. It's called ship to shelf. Ship to shelf. So now nations aren't buying or accepting U.S. Treasury bonds. So the credit windows are freezing up. Thus, the trade windows. That's what's happening to the stores. Are we clear? That's the real politics. The people being dumb and going for the narrative, look what Amazon is doing to the stores. Amazon ain't doing shit. That's between 1 and 1.5% of the entire market. However, it's more fair for the consumer because you ain't dealing with all the BS in between. However, so that gives appearances that ain't exactly what's going on. So that narrative can be used, but it ain't what's going on. But go ahead. Give the brother Mike.
The Islam. Is that what happened to the Venezuelan dollar?
Say again?
The Venezuelan dollar?
Well, no. The Venezuelan dollar, because this is what you got to remember. With the operations of Unum Sanctum, many of the Americans, the true Americans, were forced under European colonial powers to use the U.S. dollar. That's part of Unum Sanctum operations. The U.S. corporation owners were trying to take over the oil fields and the sugar plantations in Venezuela. So the CIA, which is really Jesuit order, which is really an army, had been in the business of overthrowing Venezuela. Now remember when Chavez was there, when they introduced Clinton as an example as the American president, well, I think it was Vicente Fox, president of Mexico at that time, objected and said, he's not the American president. You have a lot of American presidents here. Only sell our intelligence. He's the president of the United States. That subtlety is telling the truth that most of our people here don't get. So Venezuela has been under attack because the CIA planted cancer in him. That's what got rid of Chavez. They planted cancer is a military biological warfare. It's not natural. Now 2 out of every 5 people got cancer, and they activate it when they're ready. Most of the people that die in their families now, if you really keep a chart, most of them die from heart disease, kidney disease, and cancer. All artificially injected. And you be thinking that it's natural. It's biological warfare by the United States corporation owners and their genocide policies under Unum Sanctum to get rid of indigenous people and claim their states. Now that's the truth. Now the deal is keep you naive while they're doing it. That's the art of the politics. And us supporting the political platforms is an agreement. Are we clear? And again, like I say, people just don't want to admit that they're hypocrites. That's why they don't want this, that's why they get upset when we expose this information. This stuff is not unknown. It's just that we participated in our own enslavement and don't want to admit it. And those who've been perpetrating it know exactly what the hell they're doing. And they like to be in the shadows. And we're pulling the wool off. However, the purpose is to get you to think different. Because the only reason they're able to do this is because you're projecting energy to them. This is how things work metaphysically. Because man is mind. And we are, this spirituality says we're creators of your own, you're creators and makers of your own. What is he really talking about? The law of one, that's what he's really talking about. So now do you know what the law of one is? Now I'm telling you that the masses don't get religion, so most of the people hear what I just said and don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Why? Because they ain't been given religion, therefore they don't have a reference point. Our point is to give you a reference point so that we can start solving problems together. But you must be able and willing to think outside the box. That's what the 9-dot matrix test was for. To encourage you and to recognize to solve this problem, you're going to think out of the box. And you're going to have to be willing to do it. Because if you don't, you're food. Get over it. And don't act innocent, because you ain't innocent. Because humans have the capacity. They're unwilling to give up their belief systems, therefore they will suffer consequence. And it's not good. And they lied on the creative forces and the prophets, saying that the prophets brought these religions to them when they didn't. The priesthood did. And the priesthood is, in fact, the demons. It's not an opinion, it's a fact. And since they won't render that stuff back to Caesar, They're suffering the consequences. So Caesar tells them that they're suffering from color problems and racism, a false narrative, and they embrace that too. Therefore, they can't solidarity. And it's really what's up. And I'm saying that because it's not complex. It's really simple. It's just that the problems are complex. The problems coming out of the false narrative is complex. But the root is not complex whatsoever. It's inner sanctum and the doctrine of discovery. Now, so what she shared with you, that doctrine of discovery, read that, analyze it. All your politicians have it, all your clergy have it, and this is where they have their source of power. This is where their arrogance comes from. They're prejudiced. They're operating the doctrine of discovery. That's the basis of their arrogance. Oh, they're arrogant. No. They're treating you like animals because that's what you classify as. And you haven't rebutted it. It ain't that simple. Yes, it is. And then you keep funding them. And defending them. And condemning people who speak against them. Oh, they're trying to be sovereign and shit. Like nature won't forgive you for going against fundamental divine truth. Nature don't recognize all this BS that we've been calling religion that ain't religion. Nature don't respond to that. That's our BS. And the fact that we collectively, not every single unit, but collectively are willing to look at these things honestly. You understand? And give it back. Your mind control systems, give it back. It's called rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's. That's what that really means. And then we blame it on Jesus, God, Allah, Moses. It had nothing to do with none of this paradigm that we're actually dealing with. It's all made up by the priesthood for mind control purposes. And nobody wants to admit it. It's provable, it's researchable, but they don't want to admit it because they don't want to admit that they're hypocrites. Are we clear? Go ahead. Give her a mic.
It's okay. I just want to connect the dots.
Great, connect the
I
dots.
just want to connect the dots. Okay. So as you were talking about the false borders, you talked about also trade, and you talked about gold and silver. So it all connects back to the last thing that I was looking at is what I'm seeing, an increase of credit applications and business credit. So in looking at everything as a circle, it just brought me to wonder why is there an increase now in credit applications and build your business credit, which is we are the currency when
Now, so now what's
slow
down. Everyone needs to know what currency is and is not, because there's an assumption
correct
that currency is money,
No, we're
which
currency.
it is not. No. The inference is, without explanation,
Absolutely.
that currency is money.
No.
If you go on with the statements without qualifying what it is and is not,
Gotcha.
they're back into the false matrix.
Okay.
What's going on? They're sacrificing momentarily to preserve the system from absolutely collapsing, which it has already done. But it's like the only game in town, so they can't let another game come in. However, it itself can't work anymore because it is so anti-natural that it's imploding upon itself. Now, back to the issue. So now they want everybody to buy a car, right?
Punch the card. Get credit card.
So,
buy a home.
hold on.
Get your business credit.
So, You know, like these drones they have? You know, these drones, you get drones down here. So go over the deserts and look at the millions of cars that are brand new that are parked in the desert. That are never going to be sold. Because the issue is to keep you in debt to the Jesuit order through the banking system. Because you're not dealing with money. How much does it need to be told to you that the dumb animal masses aren't allowed to handle money? It is against their own estates. They're not giving you anything. The resources that they're building these things with don't damn belong to them. The concept that currency is money and that currency is money is part of the false narrative that keeps the masses willingly being the serfs that they are. And also keeps them from misunderstanding or not understanding the system, which is why the system works well, which is an illusion. Problem. As long as the counterfeiters can control the counterfeit, they have the power. Problem. They're losing the power of the counterfeit because the nations under their bond systems aren't accepting them anymore. Therefore, the credit windows and thus the trade windows on the international scale are frozen. Therefore, all international treaties of trade have already collapsed. So what this new treaty they're making, because the other shit ain't accepted. How about that? It's really understanding what's going on. The deal of this, we need to get a little more sophisticated into the real politics of the earth. Not what we want, but what actually is. And until you understand the illusion that currency deals with the electrical system of the being, your energy fields, and that they're tapping your currents, they're vampires, and then telling you it's money, which it is not. They're draining your energy on one end, and they're stealing your estate on the other end. And the rest of the world is not having it. That's what's wrong with the system. So now they want to give everybody credit to keep it moving, because it will shut itself down. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. As an example. Your car as an example.
So this is 230. This is a 230 and stuff. See, this got the 6-engine, and this is going to go fast and stuff like this.
You've never used the speed in that engine. That's more the speed in the other engine that costs you more. That's higher speed than that. As a matter of fact, you know what I mean? Where was I going the other day? I was going somewhere the other day. In Philly. Anyway, yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. I think between the Ben Franklin Bridge and just Market Street, getting off of Ben Franklin Bridge, to Market Street, 35 minutes. 35 minutes. No, maybe 40 in that area. That's how clogged the traffic was. So, a little spittoon 2-cylinder car would have done just as well as an 8-cylinder super behemoth that they're selling people. And the other deal is they already know that the rest of the world is already being prepared for the technologies that have been suppressed, which means by force of the way the rest of the world is moving, all cars in short order won't be electrical anyway. So now they want you to buy these vehicles that are going to be in short order, obsolete after a couple of years if you have them, and you will be in debt. Not only that, like say for instance, SUVs are popular now, right? And bigger ones and stuff like that, right? So what's going to happen when these bonds come on the roost, and then you have to give them 10 notes for a gallon of gas? And don't think it's not coming, because it is. Do you know how many cars are going to be parked in the driveway?
That happened in 2005, remember?
Well, that wasn't nothing like what's coming. That ain't. Yes, but that ain't nothing like what's coming.
Yeah, 2005 was a mess.
That ain't like what's coming. Now, so a lot of these things that you see going on is them negotiating, preparing for what they know is coming, and that the masses don't know that's coming. Are we clear? So, the more credit they give people, the longer they can keep the banks open that have already collapsed. Are we clear? Don't confuse that with progress. You know, it's like somebody saying, you would never been deep in debt before. Now what we're going to do, we're going to give you the opportunity to get in debt that you will never get out of. Ooh, credit? This is exactly what it is. The issue is the debt. Because you got to remember, all this debt, these people don't know, is leaned against the marriage certificates of their mothers and their fathers and you, and the birth certificates. So a few people woke up, they talk about the birth certificate. They don't know nothing about the marriage certificate and all the other certificates are all bank bonds. And you thinking they're giving you something, they ain't giving you crap. They're giving you liens against your own estate that they've been stealing from humanity since the Spanish Inquisition called Unum Sanctum and the Doctrine of Discovery. They're pawning your own stuff back to you in drips and dribbles, and then putting you in debt on top of what they stole from you in the first place. And you got to be mad at Trump because he's trying to put a stop to it. Give me brother Mike. Now I'm just telling you the truth. But look how many people will follow the narrative and fall in line. It's like little lemmings. They will. These good brothers, fine.
No, I'm thinking about you stuff. Turn the mic on. But you know, I was thinking about you this week while I was walking down that path, still building off that what you were saying about the mosaic pavement or the checkerboard square.
Yeah.
Then I went into chapter 5, we square measure all around straight. I had to put the place where I get according to my conduct square, so that's all in the terms. But my question is,
character building in his masonry.
yes, sir. But my question is there a way, a solution for us?
You got to get in the mic.
Is there a solution for us? I hear what you're saying. Is there a solution for us? What's the solution for us to avoid all this warcraft that they're coming down with?
All right. Now we're going back to the earlier part. Thought, thinking is actionable thought. Until you change the mind thought pattern of the people, they will be co-creators in their own servitude. If you can get them to look at things in the reality format, they will be uncomfortable. But if they're willing to get out of the box, they will solve their own problems. This is the solution. The key to the power of the priesthood is to keep thinking them in the mental that it must be given to them by them or granted to them outside of themselves. As long as that paradigm of illusion can be maintained, the dark priesthood and the vampires will remain in power, for you will be in their matrix illusion. This is again why we did 9-dot test, to give you an idea of what it's going to take. And it's not complex at all. It's just the simplicity of, do you understand the reality, the relativity, the relationships, and thus the realities? and how illusion of the manifest world is made through thought processes. So long as they control your thought processes, all they need to do is control that thought process, and you will create the condition. What they don't want you to do is come to know that, or come to recognize that. This is why no priest, no rabbi, no imam, no clergy will ever go in their private library and let any of their taxpayers, called tithers, see or read books like the Kybalion or the Four Vedas, or know that the Bible comes from Septuaginta. Because alone, just in that area alone, they would be liberated from the priesthood, and that's the beginning of their liberation from Rome, who they think is the Lord in heaven, of godness of Allah, Yahweh. No, they're under mind control, well under control. The issue is to keep them there. Now, when they ask again, and this is redundant, back to the question you just asked, what is the solution? You get them out that box and get them to respect common sense, which is relative to divine law, and they will liberate themselves. However, they must willingly render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. All the belief systems that they have been charging the prophets with, they must give it up and give it back to the demons who are really the clergy, collectively. And if they're not willing to give it up, they will be food for the vampires, which is what they have been anyway. What you see going on right now is a battle amongst them, recognizing they're being moved out of the way. So they're pretending they're going to give the people something. They're going to bless you with something now. They don't know that blessing means shedding your blood. You know, the whole concept of everything that we thought was good coming from the clergy is exactly not that. That's why humanity's in trouble right now. The deal is they're looking for some outside savior. The savior is self. Savior is within. Always has been. You must unravel the illusion by understanding what the illusion is and how it's created. And that you are co-created. Therefore, the law of one. And again, if no one really teaches you these things, there's no need to tell them anything else because they're food. And they will be devoured. And don't feel sorry for them. Why? Because humanity has the capacity. Whether or not they have the will is the issue. So humanity is destroyed for will of self, not because they're total victims. We're not. And this is where, and it's kind of like redundant, but this is where you'll see like Yeshua, or they'll use Jesus as a symbol. And he says, as I am, all men can be or shall be. What I have done, all men can do. And some of you will even do greater works than I have done. Which he's telling you, he's activated some of the chakras and demonstrated them to you, but you have the capacity to go further. What point you don't understand this? Or what point you are unwilling to look at this? But instead of really paying attention to the lessons, they start worshiping him. See the problem? Then they're saying, what's the solution? How do we fix this? By developing the self. By comprehending self. By knowing self. By respecting self. So how do you know these things? How do masterminds trace themselves? Simple. You go to a chart. If you don't know the culture, go to a chart. So how do you go to a chart? With the compass and the square. Do you see the tools? So the people see these things, but they don't know how to use them because the priesthood don't teach them, do they? Why do they not teach them? Because they've been raping the people. not some devil. The priesthood have been doing it. Is the knowledge not available? The knowledge has always been available. Has it been taught? No. Why is the masses in the slump that they're in? Because they've been given dogma. Well, what is dogma? Counterfeit religion. So what have the masses been saying? They are religious. Are they religious? No. The masses have been saying they're spiritual. Are they spiritual? No. They don't know what breath is nor how to use breath. Because that's what spirituality is, isn't it? Isn't it the fact that all the priests know this? Do they teach the people that? No, they don't. So the people suffer the consequences of a lack of knowledge, and the priesthood tell them, oh, don't worry about that, the devil did it to you, so we're going to raise some money and kick the devil's ass next week. And they've been doing this forever and ever and ever, when they themselves, that's who the problem is, right there standing at that pulpit with that cape on, that vampire with the dark cape on, at the pulpit, that you keep thinking love the Creator and all that stuff, and love Allah and love Jesus. No, they don't. They love your pockets, and they love the fact that you're enslaved to them. And they use Jesus, God, Allah, whatever flavor ice cream it takes to rape you. And that's what they've been doing. And no one is charging them for the true vampires. They absolutely are. Not that that's not known. Not only are they raping you, they're eating your babies and stealing their organs. And got the wall of the chancery to protect them through the judicial system. That's the wall that Trump is really talking about. But people who can't see keep thinking that physical wall on the Mexican border. Because they can't see any farther than there. And they will fight their own liberation. Give it a mic. And again, like I said, I'm not defending Trump. I'm just talking the chess pieces. I'm looking at the chess.
Yes, I was just wondering, the holidays that they have, is that keeping the people in a trance while they do the things that they do?
Yes, as well as sports.
Yes.
But at the same time, remember we must know what holidays are. Holidays are days of the sun. The key to them deceiving the people is the anthropomorphic angle on how these things are presented. The holidays are indeed ours, but they're not given to you the cosmological meanings of them. As an example, 4th of July, the heliacal rising of Sirius behind the sun. Right? It's an ancient holiday of the earth. All right? Now, they'll call it Independence Day. And when actually their operations was July the 2nd, not July the 4th. But they changed history in order to take credit of the energy, because everything is energy. And then we agree, and then project it, and therefore gives them power. You gotta understand how this thing works.
It's, and another thing that I wanted to ask. I'm not quite sure, but somewhere in the Bible that they tell us not to look up in the sky.
Yeah.
So we're not going to know ourselves or thyself because we have to use the natal chart.
So they'll tell you that. Let's put it this way. So write this down, y'all. Metrology. Metrology is the ancient science, not just on the earth, but also brought to the earth, are we clear? Even after the earth was prepared for our inhabitation. Because we exist before the earth. Are we clear? And yet every major edifice on the earth planet is laid out by metrology, which is the truth of religion, which is cosmology, which means all your major buildings and cities are laid out according to the stars. Are we clear? Meaning that if you understand how things operate on the earth, You can go to all major cities and all major structures and line them up with stars, transfer metrology from the heavens to the earth. And so your architecture is laid out that way. That's called metrology. So those who have been ruling you don't want you to know that because they want to keep you servants, don't they? So don't you be looking up there. So now, I'll tell you this. Camera. So the concept is 9 planets, isn't it? Not that that's not exactly true. There's roughly around 40 planets in this particular solar system. Yes. Some of them are veiled so you can't see them. That's how advanced the ancient technology is. So don't get it twisted. You're caught in an illusion. Are we clear? Now, the other deal is, if you really knew the truth of what's going on here, the skies would be darkened with movement. What's going on that you don't see. And part of your inability to see is part of the training that the priesthood has done to you, not for you, to you, in the name of religion called dogma, to deactivate your medulla and your pineal gland by willpower coming from you. Reverse polarity under psychic attack.
And then last question. I noticed watching TV, television, I noticed that the ministers, when they begin to give out blessings, and they are using the moon, the phases of the moon, to do that.
Of course, everything's done by phases of the moon. Isn't the moon the basis of ecology on the earth?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, first of all, they refer the moon as Earth's satellite, right? And so you have what you call the tide systems of ecology on the earth, and almanacs are based on that. So it gives you the running of the tides, the passing of the winds at the four corners of the earth with what they call the temperate zones, and the patterns of certain fishes, and the patterns of life forms and planting systems according to Venus and the moon and the sun majorly, although you have other planetary energies that are less calculated, but we're saying on the front. And so this is how agriculture is motivated to feed the species on this planet. Is that correct? Well, that's religion. How many of the masses know that the Bible is an agricultural book? That what they think is religion is agricultural science, giving in a metaphysical metaphor called anthropomorphic resentment. That's why they don't understand it. All clear? So now you give forces and powers personality. So you just like little boys and girls, you give them elbow. I was talking to Elmo this morning. It's cool. It's cool when the children do it, but when adults do it, you kind of wonder whether they took their pills. And people don't know this is the reality of what's really going on here. That the masses are so morphed into the anthropomorphic venues that they think they got religion, they got dogma. And they're under the control of the priesthood who know the truth of the game that's being played. And so do the politicians. And they've both been raping you. Government as you know it, that you've been experiencing, 90% fraud. Fact, not opinion. Dr. Nayo. Now that's the truth. No different than when we open up and we present to you that the U.S. that the people think is a country is unum sanctum. And it's been operating for quite some time on the planet. And the only people that know it, not that the only people that know it, it's not that others don't know it. Most people, common people that know it are afraid to speak up. But like if somebody's a Mason or Illuminati or Grand Dragon or group, all these people know it. The only ones that don't know it is the bill payers that think they're believers, that think they're buying gods, paying gods, paying for a piece of heaven type thing. They're pawns and they're in an illusion created by the priesthood that they've agreed to give power to. And so they become co-creators. And thus it becomes, in that relationship, their reality. When that is dismantled, they will be liberated. There's your solution. Go ahead, Dr. Mayo.
Just wanted to add to what you were saying, 1 Corinthians 13:11. It says that when I was a child, it says I spoke, I understood, and I thought as a child, but when I became a man, when I became mature, I put away childish things. And in many of your so-called religions, there's always the misconception that, they're no longer on the milk. Now they have the strong need of the word. When there's no time at any time when I was pastoring, now that I look back on it, well, I put a little paddle in there. Okay, you know how you put a little cereal in the milk?
Yeah.
And so there's a little thickening, but in-depth understanding of the cosmology and cosmology and all the anthropomorphic presentments and so forth that I got none of that in Bible college. Bible was taught as a literal document as opposed to a literary document. So childish things are never really put away in that context, and people think they're grandly moving up, this, ladder of now they're in some higher degree of knowledge.
Their anthropomorphic adaptation of this information, which is the designed presentment, is what puts them to sleep. And therefore, the concept that the Christ degree, or that Christ is a man as opposed to a degree that all beings have the capacity to achieve. And that the one that they called the Jesus, who is Yeshua, simply, like others before him, came to demonstrate it to them. That is it, and nothing more. To demonstrate the potential that they already have within themselves, that they're looking for the priesthood or outside themselves to get when it's already with them. Their mother gave it to them at birth. It has to be developed. And so when you're looking at, in philosophy, what they call the monad and the nomad, or that spark of light that's in that fire, that little spark that cannot be extinguished, which they call the monad. Religion exists to actually accelerate that fire. It exists for no other reason. None at all.
Would you say then left to one's own natural development, natural law would take over, and one would know
That's
exactly
why,
what
yes,
should not be
the
done.
nature of the being would be evolution. It is the interference with the will by projection of illusion by the priesthood to actually stagnate the will and to create a sluggishness. Then we accept it, and then we get in these containers called denominations, which is a mental container for keeping you within a box, a defined box. Then what you do, you give up your own personality to live this image of what the dogma presents that this represents. Therefore, I gotta wear my hat like this because it's nitzel. But the Bosnian Denvers, they wear their hats like that. And if you don't wear it like that, God's going to hit you, type thing. And then others, you can't do it like that, you got to do it like this. You know, but we over here like that, so because we're saved. And then, meanwhile, we fight each other and see who got the best sandwiches. My God makes better sandwiches than yours. Not knowing that the priests are controlling all the fruit. And they, all this whole paradigm, they made all this bullshit up. And they're controlling people and they're raping them. And in nature, in nature, if they were left alone, the same way in the seasons and due seasons as the trees come and they go and spread their seeds, so it would be with human in development and evolution. They've been interfered with by outside dark forces that are conscious of exactly what they're doing to stagnate human development. Now that is the blunt truth. And as we've adopted in our mental, the belief systems, we project our energy, our thought energy, to manifest it, not knowing that we are co-creators. And so we create the reality through our relationships and relativity. And that's what they call the 3 R's. And it operates exactly like that. Now, if you can get the people to be trustful enough to stop believing in the idol God systems presented to them by the priesthood, who's really their God type thing. They're just using Allah, Jesus, and all this stuff as a front, when they're really the one bleaching you. Nature herself will start repairing the wires. Once that kicks in, all of this stuff will just simply be shed. And you would not get caught in the illusion of, how you say, giving up or disrespecting the physical world to go to some spiritual world. You would recognize the Pegu principle of the balance of in between and learn to look at the illusions and learn that you can walk on either side as you will to do. And you don't need to leave the body to comprehend this. This is basically what Yeshua, what they call Jesus' principle, is teaching you. But men have been deceived by the priesthood, and the priesthood have actually taken over them by controlling your mind. The liberation of humanity is getting out of the box. The difficulty is their will to do so. Therefore, they will commit to their own destruction. And for the few who are willing, they have the capacity to be saved from the demon priesthood. Not some mystery devil. The demon priesthood. The clergy itself is the demon. Absolute. And the fact that they don't believe it is what keeps them in the false matrix. And the politics is the art of keeping them there in that state of mind, because man is mind. This is again, and this is redundant, but once you understand the fundamental hermetic laws, you understand the political necessity of indexus librorum prohibitorum and indexus librorum expurgatorius, or what they call the great Christian book burnings, is to keep you from the ancient hermetic principle knowledge that's at the foundation of operations of civilization on Earth planet called Gaia. Not that there's not other stuff, but fundamentally, that's how humanity is enslaved. Just from keeping them from that fundamental knowledge. Then they're open, their aura is open for you to interject. This is demonstrated with what you call the lynching of Jesus. And they take him and they hang him on that cross. And then the guards, the Roman guards try to rip his garment to share the pieces as trinkets. And they can't rip it no matter what they do. Think of the movie Vampire Let Me In. And you'll understand that metaphor. They couldn't rip it. because it can't be written unless he wills it to be. Likewise, the so is with us. The only reason they've gotten over is because we've allowed them in. And we believe in them. Stop believing in them, and the illusion will pass. Solution. Go ahead, Dr.
I was just going to say that the catechisms tell a lot, and even in terms of the so-called Sabbath, when you ask them, you read in the catechisms who changed the Sabbath from what we call Saturday to Sunday, and it says we did. We mean they did, the Catholic Church, because they have deemed themselves vicar or substitute for Christ, and they said we changed it. Like,
which vicar means a substitute.
right, which means substitute.
So what does it mean? Also,
they have substituted them, they've interjected themselves in places.
This would be Thessalonians 1 and 2. They have declared themselves God.
They say it in their own catechism.
But it's not a secret. The point that I'm making is when you really study, it's not a secret. The people aren't worshiping some Jesus, Allah, Yahweh. They're worshiping the clergy. They're worshiping Constantine. All of these names are used as passwords. That's the point. They're caught in a false matrix by their own free will. But they don't see it that way. Why? Because they have forgotten. Forgetting is not really man's position. Let's say putting something deliberately aside and disregarding it long enough not to be immediately cognizant, but man forgets nothing. Now that's the truth. And they don't make mistakes either. They make misjudgments. They don't make mistakes. They say they do. Therefore, it allows them to play innocent, doesn't it? They're still food until they render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. They will be food for the vampires. That's it. Cut and dry. The issue that we're presenting to you in general with all of our conversations is to encourage you to be willful enough to come out of park. Take your gear out of park. Be willing to move and to think outside the box. And if you're willing to do that, nature will take care of the rest. No different than if you get over your ego, get over yourself, stop interfering, clean the earth, put a seed in there. Don't sit around patting your foot. The moon and the sun will take care of business. Stop sitting around talking about what your beliefs are. That have not a damn thing to do with anything real. And stop charging the prophets with the bullshit that we've been calling religion. They are and have been social reformers accused of bringing religions to men. And their enemies have been people claiming to be religious, who are really dogmatists and demons, pointing to, see what the devil did over there? And that's what the devil did. They got their hand in their pocket. And see the devil over there is the one that really took your sandwiches and stuff, and they were laying hands upon you and shit. Oh yeah. In fact, if you keep defending them is what your problem is. You want solutions? I won't tell you what to do. It's up to you. You keep letting them mess with your babies. And you just sacrifice another generation. So don't blame the mystical devil that ain't never did a damn thing to you. It's Rev. Go ahead, Tam.
It's I just want to add to clarify. I can recall as I was growing up, that was one of the things that the pastors would always say in the church, you know, don't look in the sky and things of that nature. And they used to always quote this passage from Deuteronomy 4:19. I remember this distinctively. And it said, and when your eyes are lifted up to heaven and you see the sun and the moon and the stars, all the army of heaven, do not let yourself be moved to give them worship or become the servants of what the Lord has given equal to all peoples under heaven. Under heaven. Okay. Now, as I started
equality,
studying,
equal.
exactly. As I started studying astrology, I said, hold up. It took me all the way back to the little child on the pulpit. I said, wait a minute. The stars, the moon, and it said the army. Wait a minute. So that's the rulership.
Yes.
That's the rulership. The stars, the moon, and the sun.
And didn't it say in multiple places, I leave these signs for you?
Absolutely.
The sun, the moon, and the stars.
Exactly.
Then the priest will tell you, don't look up.
Exactly. So, and then it also helped me to understand that once you understand your natal chart and you connect yourself, your sun sign,
With
your
your
moon
nature.
sign,
You
and
looking
your
at your
ascendant
nature.
sign, you connect yourself with the same energy. And they utilize that same energy in the Constitution or the state laws of nature and naked
Nature,
God.
they're telling you.
So if we're not, that's knowing thyself. So if you don't know yourself, you never know nature and how it operates.
So likewise, when the question is made, say like in the book of Mark, when Yahshua says, I must go away, but a comforter will come with you. Say, I must go away. If I do not go away, the comforter will not come. He's letting you know that someone's coming after him. And he says, I go to my Father, and ye will see me no more. What did Rev say? He's coming back next Friday. You know? They're lying to the people right in their face, but they also don't know that that's a cosmological statement. And so the deal is, even if the people would study the books, the platform of the demons would immediately collapse because it is clearly contradictory. You go in the book of Revelation, it will tell you about 3 in the north, 3 in the east, 3 in the west, and 3 in the south. It's giving you your 4 gates. That's your 3 houses of the mansion. In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it were not true, I would have told you so. The mansion is the zodiac. The houses are in the mansion, not the reverse. So it's not that it's not there, it's that the priesthood is not really explaining the anthropomorphic presentment that they're doing to the people for control purposes. You know, and again, if you just simply would tell the people the truth, they would liberate themselves. But they're spooked up and they're caught in that false matrix and they're afraid to deal with knowledge because they're locked in beliefs in a false paradigm matrix. And whoever presents the belief controls the narrative. Whoever controls the narrative controls the mind. Whoever controls the mind controls man. This is how the game is played. That's how it's been played. That's what it is. It's not complex. It never was. It never was. It's people's willingness to believe in the priesthood, which is where their problem is. No different than when you study the dynamics of justice. Right? Who has always been the ones who have interfered with justice for the common people? It has been the clergy. Who has always sold out all the prophets? It has always been the clergy. Who's always been charged? The devil. They ain't never did shit. Who's always been doing it is the clergy. Who's been looking at as the representative of that which is divine? The clergy. Who's always injured, murdered, lynched, and delivered anyone who came to liberate humanity? Who's always delivered them to the Romans' hands? Has been the clergy. The priesthood itself is the demon and have never been charged. why it's difficult to liberate humanity. They refuse to give the priesthood up, who is the demon. Therefore, they're worshiping Constantine, lying on Jesus. And then suffering the consequences and getting mad and want to march all over the place like fools. Wait, brother. Gotta get the mic.
I just want to read something real quick. 1664, a Maryland law specifies that black who converted to Christianity will forever remain slaves.
Well, yeah, the rest of the European says because he already knows that's what it is. You know, the general word that the Europeans use is converso. You know, but again, they don't know that that's a classification. They think it's an identity. See, it's sort of like what you call an illusionary play on words. See, they were Canaanites, Moabites. Then when they submitted to Rome, then they became blacks. Blacks is the dead status that they became. So blacks didn't submit to Rome. Moors, Moabites, Canaanites who submitted to Rome became black. A free man does not linger under color. A free man does not linger under color. A free man lingers under the honor of their mothers and their fathers, for they are descendable. Therefore, they have national names. Only property comes under the code system. They would be light-skinned, orange-skinned black people, and no matter what color you are type thing, that's property. That's when you know who the universals are. They are separate from the rest of the human family and are treated accordingly. And it's not unfair either. All right. Anyway, I want to thank you all for coming out to the House of Reawakening Minds. Those of you who are listening, it's uncomfortable, but no, not just that the U.S. is a private corporation run from the Chancery Circle Church, Fleet Street, England, under the Jesuit order, under the Secret Treaty of Verona, that the U.S. is actually the political platform of Unum Sanctum established for world government rulership, which is why they go to and fro the earth, devouring nations. That's why all technologies are used as war machines, from the food to vaccines to any instruments that you get from them that's called certificates, whether it's marriage and birth certificates, registration, or marriage certificates, birth certificates, Social Security, anything that they touch is contaminated. Everything that they touch is contaminated. Everything that they build is predicated on a fraud. When you're prepared to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, then you're prepared to start being liberated. And since you say that you're divine, this is your opportunity to start proving it. So everybody on this planet is charged in this era to prove your God claims. And he better not be running. Anyway, thank you all for coming out to the House of Reawakening Minds. For those of you who are listening, support the House of Reawakening Minds because it supports you. And I give up the mic, yield the floor to Dr. Naila.
We want to thank our National Grand Chief, Tarik Bay, for another awesome class. One who's given a little bit more love than that. Come on, thank you all for coming out. Thank all our online viewers, and thank you for your participation and your faithfulness. We want to say that on next week, we will be rolling out a new format on the fourth Friday. We're going to be bringing forth some feminine energy
About time.
on the yes. And so Impress Us is coming. Impress Us will probably not be a live forum. We will be online with that. It will be live, but not with viewers. I mean, not with audience. I think that's what I'm saying. There may be maybe times when we physically have so on the fourth Friday. Impress Us, Sister Tamara, Ellen, myself, and along with other empresses that will be coming on to bring that energy forth. You know, it's time for the Sacred Mothers to come to the forefront, and
Yes.
we're going to bring that in as of the fourth Friday. So next Friday, you'll get some information preceding Friday to know the time, probably the same time, and we will be on the air, but you will not have to come here physically, but we still would like you to support the House of Reawakening Minds if you can. We appreciate it, as you know. Pretty good class as far as attendance today. I appreciate you all because the heat is sweltering. It is very, very hot. We have to keep the fans and the air conditioner going, and it's still kind of hot here.
Heavily humid.
But one of the things we will work towards when we get the other stuff done is getting some central air that will, circulate and make this place cooler. But we appreciate your indulgence and tolerance with that. So starting next week, Empress Us, play on words, is going to come forth as a part of our fourth Friday offering from the House of Reawakening Minds. And we thank you for your support, and please travel safely.
Yes, and I'll repeat again. Now, for you, just as an intro, what we shared with you that you have a print off of is a direct transliteration or translation of the doctrine of discovery. When you see the Europeans here at North America and in America, North, Central, and on the islands, and they're pretending to be Americans and challenging everybody else's identity and referring to others as aliens, it is they who are the aliens. And this will give you some insight into the arrogance that appears, in fact, to be a part of their general persona in treating other people. This is where they're coming from, including the gentrification of your communities, etc. This is where they're coming from. This is essentially the manual, and Unum Sanctum and the Doctrine of Discovery is the operative manual that they go into all across the lands, gentrifying the communities. It's not racism. It's doctrine of discovery. It's not prejudice. It's doctrine of discovery, Unum Sanctum. The U.S. political platform is not a country. It's a private corporation of the Jesuit order to enforce Unum Sanctum. UNAM, capital SANCTAM. That's what you're operating with. That's why you keep losing. That's why you're miserable. This is why all Asiatic entertainers, singers, inventors, sportsmen, doesn't matter what they are, why they keep going into the grave broke. I yield the floor. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.